on Prime Crime.
Chickasaw County 911.
Need an ambulance sent out here.
It's a scene straight from a nightmare.
What I took away was the pain and the trauma of the first responder. That person's life is never going to be the same again.
And all eyes on a concerning couple.
Were you at any time during someone's life aware that was a condition he was in?
No. Zach said that it's not my fault.
I didn't really even challenge Cheyanne in the interview. We had no idea it was far worse than that.
Hey there everybody, I'm Jesse Weber and welcome to Prime Crime. This is where we do a deeper dive into the most high-profile and memorable true crime cases. A death in an Iowa home leads to many questions and a horrifying outcome.
Chickasaw County 911.
Need an ambulance sent out.
It's August 30th, 2017 in Iowa. Zachary Koehn, a father of two young children, calls 911 and reveals a terrifying discovery.
Okay, what's going on?
Around 9, my girlfriend went to feed our son, and then about 11 or 11:30, she went to check on him, and he was gone.
Gone meaning?
He died.
It's this statement that would begin the investigation into the death of 4-month-old Sterling Koehn, who would be found dead in his swing.
What I took away was the pain and the trauma of the first responder. That person's life is never going to be the same again after seeing that close up and having been someone as a former prosecutor who went to a plethora of crime scenes, right? But to see a helpless child in that state is just a whole new level.
She went to check on him, hadn't heard him cry or whatever, and he passed away.
Typically, if a person is going to dial 911 after their child is dead, they would be panicking or they would be in shock. In this case, Zach acted what I like to call desperately casual. And this is a red flag. His neighbor was actually the one that had to tell him to call 911 because he was just standing outside of their apartment complex. So this was not rational decision making. When responders showed up that Zachary was muttering, he was casual in his demeanor, he was quiet, there was no tear to be seen. It was later argued that he was in shock in this moment, but shock doesn't look like this.
It's particularly interesting what Koehn says about the potential cause of death.
I don't know if it's sudden death syndrome or what.
Zach's comments about sudden infant death could be a viable consideration. Whenever somebody loses a child, especially a young child like Sterling, that's something that we would consider.
Police, though, need more answers. Hours after Sterling's death, Special Agent Chris Calloway spoke with Cheyanne Harris, Koehn's girlfriend and the mother of Sterling, as well as the couple's daughter, 2-year-old Nala.
Do you remember putting Sterling in the swing?
There was a detachment when talking about Sterling. She lit up when she was talking about her daughter, when she was talking about her dog. But the comments about Sterling, there was maybe a coldness.
Every time he crapped, it was straight liquid.
Okay.
I actually had a diaper where there was no crap in it, and I was amazed.
Yeah. How could you tell when he was uncomfortable?
Pause, I guess.
Okay.
That's pretty much all we could do.
Harris explains the moments leading up to finding Sterling dead.
So Nala wakes you up around noon. What happens next?
I got up and changed her diaper, went to the bathroom myself, fed her, and then I got her set up in the living room to watch a movie for a little bit.
What did you feed her? Do you remember?
Cookies.
That's okay.
And I started thinking, it's been a while since I heard from Sterling.
What happened next?
I got up and found him. And then I went and woke up Zach.
Calloway goes through different possible scenarios.
No illegal drugs in the house or no medication that you know of that that Sterling could have gotten into or found or ingested? Okay.
Initially, you go into these child death investigations with an open mind to it could be something medical, it could be something criminal.
While crossing off these potential options, what does become clear is something feels a bit off.
When you found Sterling, did you take him out of the swing, or is he still in the swing?
He was still in the swing.
Okay. Then what happens after he gets that?
After some freaking out and having no idea what to do or say, he called the ambulance.
I don't think she really understood the full gravity of what she was facing and what had happened to her child.
Coming up, new details come to light that change everything.
But I didn't know the scope and magnitude of Sterling's conditions. And so she's describing these as very matter of fact.
Zach said that it's not my fault.
Is it unusual to go that long without checking?
In 2017, Iowa police are called to the residence of Zachary Koehn and his girlfriend, Cheyanne Harris. They find the dead body of the couple's 4-month-old son, Sterling, lying in his swing. It's not immediately clear how Sterling died, yet when Harris speaks with Special Agent Chris Calloway, some of the pieces of the puzzle start to fill in.
Well, just tell me, Sterling's schedule.
He normally was able to sleep through the night with no problem.
Okay. Where was Sterling?
In the next bedroom in the swing.
Okay. So Sterling was in the swing, but the swing wasn't moving at that point. Okay.
Is it possible that this couple just accidentally forgot about their baby son in his swing?
Would that have been, around what time would that have been when you got him the bottle and changed him?
I'm honestly not sure what time.
When was Zach's last contact with Sterling?
I'm not sure.
How exactly could that happen? This becomes all the more complicated when you dig into the lives of Harris and Koehn.
Overall, Zach and Cheyanne, they were just an irresponsible couple. They would do meth together. They came together based on their drug use, not love. She continued to use methamphetamine after Sterling was born. When Sterling was born, they found methamphetamine in his blood. Drug use in general affects a person's decision-making and can make it more difficult for a person to think clearly. It can increase distractibility, reduce motor speed. Overall, when you're saying yes to using meth, you're saying no to being a good parent.
After everything that's happened, and all I can think about is that.
Yeah, well, and you're juggling a ton of stuff. I mean, on a lot of things going on.
Cheyanne has been a mother before, and so she should have known how to care for her child. Zach made anywhere between $35,000 to $45,000 a year. He found money to spend on methamphetamine, but did not have the money allegedly to spend on the special formula that their baby needed. Their friends would come over, but they had no idea that they even had a baby. So overall, these were two people who were not proud to have a small baby.
Does he help you at all with the child care, Zach?
No, yeah. He doesn't have the stomach for diaper changing.
His viewpoint was very much that the man goes out and goes to work and does not have anything to do with the home front. Like basically, I'm bringing home the money, you take care of the child and you take care of the house. And that's why he was just not engaged when it came to parenting young Sterling.
The issues in their parenting became even more apparent when we learned about Sterling's birth during a party.
Spend all day trying to go to the bathroom. Cramps got worse and worse and worse. Pushing feels not the way that it normally does. I go to stand up and there's a bullet and I'm like, oh my God, there's a head. So I sit back down on the toilet, scream for Zach. He came out in the water and he was just eyes popped open and he was just staring at me.
Oh.
We wrapped him up and we waited for the ambulance.
The mother literally didn't realize she was in labor and she was at a party and literally gave birth in the bathtub of the people's house. Should you have been at the party? Let's kind of start with that. And then, secondly, obviously that lack of awareness about your body and the fact that you're, going into labor, that's already setting the child up for a very problematic life.
I can't help but feel that I could have done something differently, or that I should have checked on him more.
Is it unusual to go that long without checking?
He always lets me know when he needs something, so I didn't think anything of it.
Sure.
When we return, we'll get an answer as to what actually happened to Sterling.
I didn't really even challenge Cheyanne in the interview. I didn't know the condition of Sterling at the time. We had no idea. It was far worse than that.
We're going to be looking at your house, and we're going to be taking things from you guys. And
So this is going to go on for a while.
but the idea is to get you guys the truth and the answers that you need.
In 2017, Zachary Koehn and his girlfriend Cheyanne Harris tell police they were shocked to find their 4-month-old son Sterling dead in his swing. Harris would explain to investigator Chris Calloway that she fed Sterling.
How many feedings would Sterling have a day?
But normally it would be 3 or 4 of the 8-ounce things.
Okay.
And Sterling's room seemed to be fine.
How warm was the room?
It was comfortable, and it didn't seem too hot to me.
Yet it soon becomes clear that things aren't adding up, and that the couple, who struggled with substance abuse, hadn't checked on Sterling for quite some time.
I didn't have any preconceived notions about what had happened. And as she started talking, I was just left with that gap in time. I mean, so we're looking at 19 hours with no care of a newborn.
If you were to predict what the doctors will find, what do you think?
Zach keeps saying something about sudden death syndrome.
Okay.
Overall wasn't very well thought through. This just doesn't add up with sudden infant death syndrome.
There's something else to know about Sterling's death, something that would make this case stand out from many others. Sterling wasn't just found dead in his swing, but his room was in fact extremely hot and smelled of urine. And one of the most disturbing revelations, the infant's diaper was filled with maggots.
Sterling was taken to our state medical examiner's office where an autopsy was done, and cause of death was denial of critical care, and the manner of death was considered homicide.
He, I believe, was an entomologist who spoke extensively about, the fact that the flies and the maggots that were on baby Sterling's body, he was able to track back and say, listen, based on where the eggs were in their development, how the flies were in their development, we can say that, this had been going on and this child had been in this state for close to 2 weeks. How did the child stay in a swing for 2 weeks without diaper being changed, anyone checking on him? That's just beyond the pale.
According to the autopsy, Sterling died from a combination of malnutrition, dehydration, and an E. coli infection. Ultimately, both Koehn and Harris were arrested and charged with first-degree murder and child endangerment.
I think that drug use, along with mental health, contributed to this, but I think it goes deeper than that with this couple. There is an absolute lack of empathy towards their child. You could argue that there's some disorder or that they're disturbed mentally, but there's also an element of evil here. It takes conscious effort to do this.
Up next, Koehn and Harris each go to trial and try to convince jurors they're not murderers.
Did you know that Sterling had not been changed for some time?
I did not. No.
Did you want to see Sterling in pain?
Of course not. No.
Did you want your son to die?
I did not. No.
think all court shows are the same?
We're talking about your father. Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Think again. Judge Caprio rules with common sense.
I was having contractions. I was rushing to the hospital.
Inspector Quinn, what does justice demand? Jail?
And compassion.
I'm going to take the circumstances into consideration.
The best court experience I've had.
Clearly, Judge, he's been in a court before.
Get caught in Providence.
Hi, I'm Dan Abrams. In the exploding legal and true crime genre, Law and Crime is the only network that has it all.
Good evening and welcome.
This is a complicated case.
Don't really jump to conclusions.
Welcome to Prime Crime Tonight.
Another day of drama between both sides.
From multiple live trials daily to original and compelling programming, the Law and Crime Network is everywhere, and we invite you inside the jury box. This is Law and Crime.
How has Sterling's appetite been the last day, couple days? Their feedings? Okay.
In Iowa, parents Zachary Koehn and Cheyanne Harris are facing murder and child endangerment charges in connection with the death of their 4-month-old son Sterling. Forensic evidence, including the presence of maggots in the infant's diaper, suggests Sterling hadn't been fed nor changed in 2 weeks and was left to die in his swing. The couple were tried separately. First up was Koehn.
Little Sterling couldn't feed himself. He couldn't change his diaper. He was vulnerable as only an infant can be. The evidence in this case will show by his actions, he directly caused Sterling's death. He told the dispatcher that his son had died of SIDS, or sudden infant death syndrome. That's not what happened in this case. This was not an accident. That was a cover story concocted by this defendant to cover the awful truth.
And he's going to talk about the evidence. Why this is a tragedy, but not a crime. And we're going to ask you to return a verdict of not guilty.
In a case with such horrid details, many wondered, how could the defense explain this away? Well, Zachary Koehn himself tried to do just that when he took the stand.
You said several times in cross-examination that you put your trust in the wrong person. Who is that person that you trusted?
Cheyanne Harris, the mother.
Were you at any time during someone's life aware that that was the condition he was in?
No.
You knew that he was not being fed. What would you have done?
I would have fed him, for sure. I had trusted her judgment. I mean, look at my daughter. She's very healthy, and so I trusted her.
He totally was blaming her and being like, I trusted the wrong person. At the end of the day, it's both of you. Because you're both the parents and you both live in this tiny house. Him trying to blame her and her trying to blame him just made the jury more enraged.
State of Iowa versus Zachary Koehn, verdict form, count 1. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. Count 2, we, the jury, find the defendant guilty of child endangerment causing the death of a child.
Then there was Cheyanne Harris's trial.
That this is not a case where the parent, Ms. Harris, lacked resources or was an inexperienced parent. The other child in the home, her name is Nala. The evidence will show that she was healthy, in contrast to Sterling. In contrast to Sterling, she was properly clothed and clean and bathed. She was properly fed. That child's mother, Cheyanne Harris, failed in her responsibility as a parent. She failed little Sterling. She violated the trust that Sterling placed in her as her mother.
You're going to wonder what kind of monster could do something like this. The monster in this case is mental health. The monster in this case is depression, postpartum, substance abuse. She's not evil. and this case is not murder.
It was an extremely difficult case to try.
I think it was a situation where Cheyanne was suffering from postpartum depression, as well as substance abuse, and then adding in a father who wasn't claiming this baby. And so I think that's why the older child, Nala, was cared for, and the younger child was kind of just left to the side, and it just spiraled down from there.
Certainly had evidence of the use of methamphetamine, a prolonged use of methamphetamine, meth causing that disconnect. And you lose your understanding of time. It shows that she was really disconnected from reality.
They didn't have anything to show that she had actual hate for this child or any reason to suspect that she wanted the baby to die.
We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of murder in the first degree. We, the jury, find the defendant guilty of child endangerment causing the death of a child.
We were hamstrung by Iowa's felony murder rule as it relates to a certain form of child endangerment. If it's proven, then they don't have to prove premeditation. And what that did is it gutted our ability to argue anything along the lines of specific intent. They don't like the felony murder rule. Murder should be reserved for the worst of the worst. And Cheyanne is far from that.
Both Harris and Koehn were sentenced to life in prison. And at the time of this taping, each of their appeals have been shot down.
It's never going to bring Sterling back. It's never going to diminish the horrendous, miserable last days of his life. But you can hold Zach and Cheyanne accountable, and in a small case, prevent this from ever happening again. It's tough to work these types of cases, but it is important that the truth comes out.